Good morning, Ryan Lanji. It's Alex from Scratch here, and I'm interviewing Ryan Lanji this morning. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Alex Fox, sweetheart, polka dot queen.
I love my polka dots, I really do. Well, we're talking to Ryan today because if you've already received your Scratch magazine, you'll know that he's the cover star of the September issue. And there's a reason why we wanted Ryan on the cover. And so it goes way back to, am I right if I say 2011? Is that when I met you, Ryan?
Yeah, it is 2011.
2011. Okay, because I wasn't sure if I'd got my absolute date, but I think we celebrate 10 years this year of the project that you came into the UK doing called Nailphilia in London.
Yes, that is correct. Nailphilia was my first fashion exhibition that revolved around the subject of fingernail art, nail art.
Okay, so this is why we've got Ryan on the cover. This is why we're speaking to Ryan today. But I want to start at the beginning and ask you, Ryan, what brought you to UK shores? Because I believe you came from Canada.
Yeah, so I was very young. I was in school studying film production at Simon Fraser University. I was studying film and I just felt very disenfranchised by it. Like I just felt like a lot of people wanted to be filmmakers, but no one was doing anything like really cool. Everything felt like they were making everyone wanted to be Quentin Tarantino or Wes Anderson or Steven Spielberg, and I was like, this is not my zone. This isn't my vibe. And so I ended up dropping out for personal reasons and just disenfranchisement. And then I was just hanging out at a cafe and working with a friend of mine. And this man kept coming in who was super cool. He was so edgy. And he'd always get like a bowl of soup and a bun. And I was like, sorry, sir, what is it that you do? And he was like, I'm a curator. And I was like, what's that? And he was like, I put on fashion and art exhibitions. He's like, you're very interesting. Would you like to try? I was like, yeah. He's like, come and assist me on one of my shows. And I was like, okay. So the next week, I basically walked down the street and went to this gallery called Lumen Gallery. And he was putting on an exhibition for a fashion journalist named Virginia Leeming. Now, Virginia was a fashion journalist who traveled the world for over 25 years, looking at fashion exhibitions and writing about them. But back in the day, when you went to fashion shows, you were never allowed to take photographs. You have to have a permit to be a fashion photographer for a newspaper, and you were not the cell phones and mobile phones and social media didn't exist. So like you had to have a license to be authorized to take photos. And basically, she just took a Polaroid camera and a disposable camera and took every single photo she could possibly take. And this was a 25-year reportage of all the pictures she could never publish. And so I was 22 years old, being like, well, this is so cool. What is this? And he's like, this is Alexander McQueen's skirt in Paris. This is Andre Leon Talley entering Fashion Week. This is Audrey Hepburn at Fashion Week. This is Betsy Johnson doing the splits. And these are all these pictures I was looking at. And I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And he's like, I want you to put the show on. He's like, show me how you'd put it on display. And so I basically recreated, without knowing what it looked like, I recreated a fashion photo studio. So I rented lights and I like created a light table and like hung all the work like it was a mood board and created this space that he was just really enchanted by. And he's like, you have to keep doing this. And so at that age, I think I realized I could be British. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this in a big city. So I just got on a plane and moved to London and within 6 months had conceived and curated Nailphilia. How I did that was I got a job at a gallery and they had a gap in their calendar and they were like, we need a show for September. We want a show that's going to like make everyone talk about our gallery. And I was like, okay, can I do something fashion related? And they're like, sure. And at that point, I was noticing on this new app called Instagram that everyone was using that there was a lot of people posting about beauty and nails. And I remember going to the market and seeing this one girl painting her nails like, but she had these pens that she'd fill with ink and then she was using them very, very delicately. And I was like, oh my God, this is really intense. She looks like she's actually painting on fingernail beds. And I was like, this is like a human canvas. And that's when everything went in my head, being like, oh my God, I need to do a show about nail art and show people that nail art is actually a form of contemporary art. And I was like, I need to do this. And that's how I came up with the idea.
So literally, it was just flicking through an Instagram,
Yeah, and really,
and then the penny drop that actually nail technicians are artists,
yeah, yeah,
and
that's
so it took.
that's exactly what it was.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So you've decided that you're going to curate nail art as a contemporary version of art. So what happens next? How do we come up
So,
with the name?
so I saw the girl and was like, oh my God, this girl's really cool.
Can you
Um,
remember who she was?
yes, it was Sophie Harris Greenslade from the Illustrated
Oh,
Ed.
okay. She was a I love Sophie Harris. She was a columnist for Scratch for about 2.5, 3 years.
And so these were the nails that she first did on my hand.
Oh my, oh
She
my,
did Margiela nails.
oh wowzers. That's incredible. You have access to, you obviously kept, because you're a curator, you've kept everything, archived everything, you can remember everything.
Also because we are sitting here now, like 11 years later, my Facebook and all of my time machines are basically like, this happened 11 years ago, this happened 10 years ago. So all of the original like invites and everything are popping through. So I came up with this idea where I went on the internet and started finding all these images of cool nails. And I was like, we'll call the show Nailphilia. And the gallerists were like, "You sure this is gonna fly? Like, are people gonna care about this?" I was like, "You have no idea how cool the show is gonna be." I was like, "I'm gonna get as many cool nails as I could possibly find," because I knew at a young age, growing up watching my mom get her nails done, that acrylics were not a part of the body; they were put on the body. And I was like, imagine if we had like acrylics as a canvas and had all these artists creating cool nails based on art from our gallery. And so I approached Sophie, and Sophie did my nails. And I said, I think you're really talented. I think I'm going to do this show that I really like you to get behind." She was in my house and she was like, "Are you mad?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "If you can promise me that you'll do 8 sets of nails for me, I will fill the room with other nail technicians and other people." And so she was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." So I said, "Go through our catalog of artists and pick whatever artwork that you really like, and create nails based on that. And I'll start using the internet to find the best of the best." And so that's when I spoke to Anna Trevelyan, who is possibly one of the biggest stylists in the world now. She's very, very famous for styling people like Rita Ora, Lady Gaga, Rihanna, and Cara Delevingne, and everyone. And I went to a party and just like got with her, and she was just, I was like, "What's your name?" She's like, "Anna Trevelyan." And I was like, "Cool, I'm Ryan Lanji." And I was like, "I love your work." And then I managed to find her Twitter, and I just sent her a message going, "I'm trying to do a show about fingernail art. Like, do you know any nail technicians?" She's like, "Yeah, I know 3." She's like, "I think you should get in touch with Jenny Longworth. I think you should get in touch with Marianne Newman. I think you should get in touch with Sophie Robson." And I was like, "Okay, cool, I'll start there." And so I spoke to Marianne Newman. I went on Twitter again. This is me bypassing agents and bypassing
That's
agencies.
brilliant. That's
And
the way to do it.
I went straight onto Twitter and was just like, "My name is Ryan and I'm just doing this show about nail art. Would you be interested?" And Marianne was like, "Yes, I'd definitely be interested." And I was like, "Would you be able to give me," I remember being so silly. I was like, "Marianne, would you be able to give me a photograph that you've used on your Vogue cover?" She said, "My Vogue cover? I've done over like hundreds of Vogue covers."
Yeah.
And I was like, I was like, "Okay, you're a small
Who's
fish in
your
a big
favorite Vogue cover?
pond."
Your favorite 10?
Yeah, and then she said, "You should get in touch with Alex Fox from Scratch Magazine." And I was like, "Scratch Magazine? What is this?" And so then I started researching and found out that Scratch Magazine is the industry's leader in nail art and nail technician stuff.
Stuff.
The whole universe of nails. And
Yeah.
then I found out about Nailphilia. I found out about the Nail Olympics, and I was just like, "Oh my God, you have just found the cupboard that has opened a door into the beauty industry that no one's talking about." And so I got on the phone with you, and you were like, "This idea is great. I've never heard of someone doing something like this before." You're very supportive in saying like, "This is what the Nail Olympics are, and this is what the competitive side is. This is what the industry side is. This is what the salon side is. But what you're doing is showcasing how contemporary it can be." And so it was with your help that you helped build out the list of technicians. Like you were like, let's get Scratch
Sam
involved.
Biddle. Sam
Yeah.
Biddle came along, didn't she? Try and remember some names.
You had Sam Biddle, we had Mike Pocock, we had Andrea Fullerton, we
Yeah.
had the one and only icon legend
Sue Marsh,
Sue Marsh.
who has got treasures of nails in boxes that people don't know about, because she
Yeah.
styled some of the biggest celebrities in the 90s and early noughties, and has just kept her treasures in boxes that no one knows about. She's one of the nail industry's best kept secrets, to be honest.
You said if you can find out where Sue Marsh is and get Sue Marsh involved, you've created a show that will be truly unforgettable. And I went out of my way to find her email, and I emailed her, and she within days was at my gallery with boxes of nails, and all of them were perfectly archived.
Yeah.
She had nails from PJ Harvey that she designed for on set, uh, Tristan Weber, McQueen. She had nails that so most people who are in the nail world and are very articulate about the canon of contemporary and creative nail design will know about the nail artistry, the book. That Sue was a part of. All of the nails that we use as models and maquettes within that book, she had on display for the first time ever. So her dolphin nails, her corkscrew nails, um, her fairies that everyone saw, showing the possibilities of using molds and acrylics in ways that salons like didn't even realize were possible. And Sue, she even had sketches and mock-ups of nails from the Spice Girls, all
Yeah.
on display for the first time. It was truly amazing.
She is she's one of these people that, because she's such a private person, I mean, I'm obviously I know you know this, Ryan, but I can tell the world here that Sue pioneered nails in this industry, and Marion Newman was pioneering at the same time. They were doing things in the 90s that people just don't necessarily know they were doing. And Sue being so very private, and also in those days, you didn't tell anyone if you were doing a celebrity. In those days, nail technicians got kicked off jobs by talking about whose nails they were doing.
Yeah.
It's just the way it was.
And
So Sue had
you're
all of this going on and kept it to herself.
You're absolutely right. Sue is a quiet creative, and Marion is a creative educator. And after knowing them for more than a decade each, it's like fascinating to see both of them in the industries that they're in now. And I think that it's so beautiful to know that those two souls had met each other, because I don't think Sue would have been able to exist in the world that is so public facing now. And I don't think the creative techniques and artistry of nails would be able to be at the level it's at if Marion did not take over and educate and make sure that people were doing it right.
I'd say that that was a beautiful synopsis. And I think when they both hear you say that, they will both be giddy with joy inside, because they're both also, important to say here, punctuate this by saying they're both incredibly humble.
Yeah.
You know, they don't walk around with their egos on display. They are literally the reason our nail industry is in the place it's in. They've done so much, and I'm so glad that you found them for this Nailphilia exhibition. So tell us then what happened at Nailphilia and how long it ran and where it was.
So with Nailphilia, we started galvanizing faster than two matches dancing together. We basically had Scratch behind us. I was in Kent meeting everyone at Scratch, and you were like, "This show is going to be really cool." I was coming up with the plans. We were getting nails from around the world and imagery from around the world. We had Megumi Mizuno come in. We had Sophie Robson show me all of the craziness that she's up to. Sophie Robson's an absolutely incredibly eccentric and tenacious nail technician. When I was really young, I was very enchanted by Sophie, and I still am to this day. I think she's a rock star. She was painting on taxidermy. She was covering hands in Swarovski crystals. She was working with like the who of the pop, I'd say the queer pop world and the fashion pop world. And she had like this really amazing piece called Trigger Fingers in it, which was like a cast of a hand in the shape of a gun, and all the nails had like bedazzled embellishments hanging off of it. And so she really helped build out the show into like the sort of cool factor that we needed. At the time, Minx had entered the market.
Because you had the hanging chandelier.
Yeah, so Minx was capturing the zeitgeist of the possibilities of metallic and digital print nails, which was it was taking a leap from McQueen and what he was doing at Atlantis, like, and all Mary Catranzu and all these new designers that Marion, I think, was working with them quite closely, where she was utilizing that skill to create nails that look like photographs. Like it was quite amazing. So we had basically an homage to Minx and all of the shows that they'd recently done. I put my head above the parapet and I met some of the nail jewelers that were designing nail jewelry for fashion and art. So we had La Rucci, who brought the iconic gold fingernails that Beyonce wore and who run the world. So those were on display. But I paired everything with the sense of fine art. Like we had an amazing graduate artist who was casting hands out of wax, because I just didn't want the show to look like a nail salon or like a catalog. I want it to look unforgettable, and I want all the hands to look real. So we had hands popping out of the walls, we had hands popping out of plinths, and every hand had the fingerprints and markings of a human hand, and we pasted and glued the nails on. So it really felt like nails were taking over the space. So I was very, very proud. I was 23 and I had no idea what I was doing.
It is an incredible achievement when you think how I was sitting here just thinking, my goodness, if you were 22 when you bumped into your curator inspiration in Canada, then you must be 23 when you've just pulled off the most sensational, to this day as well, most sensational and only exhibition for nails that there's been something that's happened potentially in, well, not potentially happened in America, but it was for a brand.
Mm.
Whereas you brought artists together and
Yeah.
you brought the work of the artists together from all over the place in different forms and
Yeah, I
ways.
remember at that point Jenny Longworth was the it girl. Like she was designing for Rihanna, and she was the head nail ambassador for Revlon. And when she came on board, Revlon was like, "What is this show? We need to make sure that Jenny's here, here, and here." And I was like, "I'm sorry, it's my show." So I'm gonna spotlight Jenny, but everyone's gonna get an equal spotlight. And I think that created the linchpin of my morals and values when it comes to how I curate and how I collaborate. It's about championing talent and about putting everyone on the same even platform, and not creating a hierarchy. And so I think what's really important to chat about is how the nail industry has always been the bottom rung of the ladder when it comes to beauty. There is hair, and then there is makeup, and then there is like all of the other things you can do to your body. But nails are often the last resort, but the most talked about thing that happens on a catwalk, or the biggest nail trend. I think what's really interesting to note is that nails are the only way that you can remove classism from fashion. If you have the talent, and if you have the patience, and if you have a cool set of colors, you can create looks that are actually the same looks that you will see at Paris Fashion Week or on Beyonce or Lady Gaga. And it has nothing to do with education, it has nothing to do with richness. It just has to do with pure, unbridled talent. And so that was something I thought was so beautiful, because we really showcased how that aspect of the beauty industry had a lot
It's
more growth.
accessible to everyone.
Thank
That's
you.
it, isn't it? It's accessible to everyone. Doesn't matter if you're 17 or 85. All you need is literally, when we use this line, the only thing that's holding you back is your own imagination.
Yeah.
um, because I mean, everyone can paint their own nails. Obviously, I don't advocate that on a massive level, because I'm all about going into the salon and about the artists and the professionals. But on a day-to-day, it is also accessible to everyone.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That statement right there, that I'm all about going to salons and championing the actual professionals. It's like what I was trying to do with the show was be like, you can do this, and this anyone can do this, but these are the people who've done it, and these are the people who've brought it into your field of vision. And like I find that like in the world of fashion now, like people go into shops like ASOS and Boohoo and all the stuff, and are buying clothes, but no one's asking who made it, where it came from. Like realistically, these garments that you put on for 50% off or 20 quid in the sale rail are actual clothes that and decisions that have come from designers in their own studios and their own ateliers. And I think what we need to do after COVID and after the pandemic is start truly appreciating and championing the true artists and the true technicians who are making things happen on a bespoke level. Because otherwise everything's just going to become repackaged and sold back to us, and we'll never truly know who the talent is, and who's deserving of the accolade.
That's such a fair point, and I think that the problem there, Ryan, is it needs to be shouted about a lot, because we're living in quite a diluted society at the moment. I mean, I don't know. I'm in my 50s, and so I've seen I've seen life from 19. When I was started waking up in the 70s, but I've seen life very, very different. We all grew up on organic vegetables because we were growing them because we couldn't afford to buy them. It's
Definitely.
things, this is how life has changed, and now we've got organic vegetables, but people can't afford them. The
Mm.
world's gone a little bit crazy, and now everybody's decided to live on their phones,
Yeah.
and that is diluting things. And I talk from the perspective of having 3 teenage children,
Mhm.
that it doesn't matter what the peer pressure, doesn't matter what comes out of my mouth. I mean, obviously it does to a degree,
Yeah.
because I'm the person leading the household, if you like, but and showing them the way forward. But peer pressure and the way society is moving as a whole
Yeah.
means things are getting diluted, and so we need to speak out more, because it is important to think that you buy something from ASOS and you think this is a beautiful dress I'm wearing today, but actually, where did it come from? Who drew the original concept?
Yeah.
Who's the person behind it? I
Yeah.
do think we need to celebrate artisans much more, otherwise people will stop wanting to be them.
And this is a really good point. And like sometimes I find it a bit interesting because I am such a young, I guess let's call me like ethnic boy from Canada who's just embedded himself in the nail industry and having all these deep conversations. But I had the privilege of being at the Scratch Awards recently, and I was listening to all the nail salons, and they were very proud of the fact that they were fully vegan. And they were like, "Oh, we're a fully vegan nail salon." And I was like, "Great, but the buck does not stop there. Be vegan is a way to stop animal cruelty, but sustainability is even more important as well, because if you are not being sustainable, you're being cruel to humans, because we cannot live on this planet for longer than a certain period of time. And so sustainability when it comes to fashion, sustainability when it comes to human rights, sustainability when it comes to veganism, like we should be thinking about all of it. And it's not a situation where you can't do it all. It seems like an arduous, like huge responsibility for any salon or nail technician to take on, but really it's just a simple choice that you can make.
I don't think it's an arduous or difficult journey at all, because what we absolutely do know is that everybody can do their bit, and we
Yeah.
know that it started once upon a time. And just because you're one human doesn't, I mean, what many great things have come from one human. It's a fact. But we know that it wasn't that many moons ago when we were told, please take your own shopping bag to Sainsbury's. Well, sorry,
Yeah.
supermarket. And I remember it was a case of, oh, how am I ever going to remember to take my own shopping bags? And now it's
Oh my God, I remember that.
right, but it's absolutely
Yes.
second nature. It's second nature now. You don't leave the house without all your big amount of shopping bags, and nobody expects to have. We can change an entire society's psyche very quickly if we actually jump in it and talk about it and make it happen. We can do it.
Yeah, it only takes a small group of people to change the world, and they're usually rebels. So
Yeah.
I think the nail industry have been rebels through and through, whether it be fashion or anything they've been put through. Like you're working on a dime, you're underneath a table, or you're hustling really fast to grab a whole bunch of plastic and put it on people's nails, and it's a situation where like just I think the nail industry has what it takes to change the
It
beauty industry.
does, and it starts with bamboo.
Yeah,
For me, it starts with bamboo. Is just a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant thing that's come on the scene, and we can get our sundries made of bamboo.
yeah.
Start right there. I've also been looking at the Green Salon Collective. Have you heard of that?
No, tell me more.
It's wow, the Green Salon Collective. It's. I hope I'm saying it correctly. I might be saying it incorrectly, but basically, it's an organisation. Hashtag waste embraced, where you in a hair salon you collect all the hair,
Yeah,
and then you create these hair booms, massive, massive hair booms, and then you put them in the sea when there's an oil slick, and it mops up the sea. So you can use human hair from hair salons that can be collected by this organization. So it's used to mop up oil slicks and used on shores to stop the oil going anywhere near wildlife. It's absolutely brilliant. And they're
yeah.
using them, and they're also making hair mats, which you can use in different spheres of society on land. So you've got booms for the sea and the shore, mats for oil slicks and what have you that happen in regular life. So that's the first thing we can do as hair salons,
Yeah.
is get involved in that. Plus, they also will recycle every single hair foil. Can you imagine? Doesn't matter how dirty it is, they will recycle the hair foils. So this is a huge thing straight away that can
Yeah.
happen from hair
I
salon.
mean, what you're saying, which is really, really effing cool, is the fact that beauty no longer needs to be on the outside. You can be beautiful inside and out by using the things you use on the outside to make the inside of our world a better place.
Yeah, right. I like that.
Here
Yeah.
for it. I'm here for it.
There's a lot of good that can be done, and all it is talking about it, letting it be put out there, because I'm currently doing something for Scratch on Eco Salons, because
Yeah.
I'm writing about Honestly Ombre, who just won Nail
Yeah.
Salon Beauty of the Year, who was sustainability.
Congratulations.
Totally. And so, and then I found this collective when I talked to the CTPA and said, what can you do? What can you tell me about a green salon guide? And they said, go to this salon collective. I'm like, my goodness, opened up a whole world for me.
Yeah.
So it just needs to be told.
Yeah.
I'm sure salons will jump on it if they've got the organizations to go to that will recycle their bits and pieces.
Well, told and also listened and received. I mean, it's important for the nail industry to like. It's one of the industries that have had to band together because they needed to show that they have power and they have strength. And now with that strength and power, they should help make that change. I think it's super important, especially because I'm sure that when anyone is going to point fingers at who has the biggest carbon footprint, the nail industry is going to like be the first person to get a finger pointed at them, and it doesn't need to be that way.
No, no, it doesn't. I mean, nobody's expecting anybody to be the master of this the master of all solutions here, but you've got to show willing. In my opinion, everybody's got to do their bit, and we do our bit at home, so let's do our bit at work.
Well, my dear friend Rose McGowan, who was one of the trigger fingers behind the Me Too movement, said to me when I spent time with her in London, she was like, "I'm not asking you to change the world. I'm asking you just to do 10% more." She's like, "It's just 10%." She's like, "It's not a huge amount. And if you do that and everyone does that, then we've got to a better place."
We've got to a better place straight away, and then we can start thinking that maybe the next generation and the generation after that have got a world that they might. I mean, that's obviously, needs to be our concern, is the world we're leaving behind, not the one we're living in.
Absolutely. And so after Nailphilia, I was approached by I got a phone call from Revlon because I spoke to them before and they were like, oh, actually, I didn't finish my thought. I was saying that Jenny Longworth brought some really cool nails in. She brought nails from like Jessie J in, and she did like a really cool embellished jacket. And I was really happy to work with Jenny because Jenny was just like, she was cool and she was like on the same wavelength as me, and we're both riding a similar wave. And so Revlon called very shortly after, and they were like, "We loved what you did with Nailphilia. We're so sorry we didn't get involved, but would you be interested in curating our 80th retrospective at the London Film Museum?" And I was like, "What?" And I was shook. I was like, "Okay, I'm this kid who just entered London, did this show that had like the editors of Vogue and celebrities and fashion stylists and PRs and so like everyone that you could think of now came to that show or heard about Nailphilia. I mean, even Susie Bubble from Style Bubble, who was like the biggest blogger at the time, was there the next day being like, "What is this show that I saw on the internet that everyone was chatting about?" Had all been there, and now Revlon, the creators of nail enamel, had called me asking me to curate their 80th retrospective. So I was quite humbled and excited. So I quit my job and I curated that in 2000 and I think it was just 2012, the following year in November.
Well, was that quick, was it?
Yeah, I just left the gallery and I had like 5 months to turn it around. I remember having a meeting with them and going to the V&A, and I sat there being like, "I've quit my job and I have no money. I can barely afford this bowl of soup, but I'm gonna crack open this book called Fire and Ice and start reading about Charles Revson, the demon himself."
So is this right then? Nailphilia was run in the November 2011, and then the Revlon retrospective was November 2012.
Yeah, I think Nailphilia was September of
September,
2011.
sorry.
Yeah, it was a September show, and then we had Enamored 80 Years of Revlon at the London Film Museum in 2012. Yes, and I think it was like October November run, but it was incredible, and I will definitely show you pictures of it. But it was like if Mad Men did a nail art show.
Brilliant. So
Yeah.
so did both of these exhibitions run for a month?
Nailphilia ran for a month, and the Revlon show was so big that it actually only ran for 4 days because like it was a big. I mean, it was the birth of like pop-up events. Like,
Okay.
yeah, it was at that era where PRs were injecting a lot of money in order to create a big moment to generate a lot of press. Nailphilia, without any PR, and just industry behind it, I think had over 60,000 hits to our gallery website the next day. And so with that sort of explosion of interest, everyone was like, these things called hashtags are a thing, and trends are a thing, and we need to get on this. So I got plucked from the gallery and pulled into the I guess guerrilla curation world, and so I was really excited to that show. I worked with some incredible artists. I worked with Alex Noble, who was a fashion designer for Lady Gaga, to do set design in the exhibition. I worked with Jenny Longworth. I mean, she created a massive disco ball out of nails. She created like Louboutin nails, because there's a rumor that it was Christian Louboutin who used Revlon nail enamel to paint the underside of the shoe. We're not sure if it's truth or not. We're not allowed to say, but it was a moment that I had this really amazing nail polish bottle. And in the base of the bottle, I had all of these red heels inside it. Um, and so there's a really cool photograph of that. And we had a room looking at the future of nails. So we had like a lot of contemporary art that was using be like I guess some of the stereotypical symbols of beauty, like lipstick and fingernails, as art. So I was trying to blend fashion and art together, fashion, art, and beauty together. So it was a really exciting, eccentric show for sure.
Blimey. Wow. So that's,
And that was 24.
I know, I get it. I get it. My goodness. So after that, where did life take you after that? Where have you been, Ryan? Tell us more about where you've been.
Well, I probably spent the next 5 years like curating shows for different artists and fashion designers and photographers. So I worked with Jess Tozer, who worked under Nick Knight, doing a show for him, and that was in collaboration with Wonderland. I worked with Fred Butler. The She was the paper extraordinaire, creating amazing props and garments for the likes of Gaga. I think Marion Newman did her collections back in the day. I did a show for her. I also worked with Alex Noble. I curated his solo exhibition called Creatures from the Kaleidoscope. Alex was really infamous for the garments he did for Gaga's Bad Romance, and he did the Judas hoodie and all of her BMA outfits. And so I met him at his studio. Again, this is me just being in London, very curious and unafraid to bang on people's doors, being like, "Can I see your studio? Can I learn about your work?" And I'd meet them being like, "Wow, I really want to put a show on for you." And at this point, I wasn't making any money from it. I would always just ask them for a goods in service. So like for Alex, I said, "Can you just give me a tattoo?" And he was like, "What?" I was like, "After I do your show for you, like, will you stick and poke a tattoo on my arm?" And he was like, "Sure." So I put the show on for him where he did this amazing work. And like he was working with MTV Awards, like he was doing the after party rooms and set design. And so like he's a really, really close friend now. But back then I was just very excited and I wanted to showcase all of my talented friends in exhibitions. Beauty wise, I was approached by Cosmetics a la carte. They were one of the first beauty brands in Belgravia who were allowing women to come into the salon and mix their own foundations and powders themselves.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it was their 40th anniversary, and they were infamous for creating the blue eyeliner for Princess Diana. They were infamous for doing the black face foundation for Grace Jones, which led me to having a really cool conversation with Grace Jones on the phone. I will never forget that.
Wow.
So I, someone arranged a phone call with me and Grace, and she was like, "Darling, darling, what can I do for you?" And I was like, "Hi, my name's Ryan. I'm like trying to do this show." And she was like, "What is it that you need to know?" And I was like, "Wow, how did you come up with that black face powder for Cosmetics on the car on the cover of Nightclubbing?" And she was like, "Oh, I just walked into the salon and said, I want to look like that cat. I want to look like that black cat in the salon." And so they did it.
Brilliant.
Which is really cool. And yeah, so I'm very blessed to have met some of the leading culture shapers through the industry of beauty. Um, but everything has taken a cool twist and turn in the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
I My exhibitions ended with a big show at the V&A called Conservation Couture. It was held by the Animal Ball, where I worked with 40 fashion houses to create massive masks for a masquerade that they host every year, raising awareness for endangered animals like whales and bears and elephants. And so I curated a one-off exhibition in the uppermost dome. So when you look at the V&A, there's like a really big dome at the top. I I on the fly had to curate a show in that space, and I think it lasted 2 weeks, but it was one of the hardest exhibitions I've ever done. But I got to work with houses like Jean Paul Gaultier, Thierry Mugler, Burberry, Chloe, and so many more. There were 40 of them, and helped their masks be highlighted and showcased for the ball. But at that point, I was like, okay, too much exhibitions and too many crazy shows. I just want to get a job at a gallery, which I found was nearly impossible because um, I didn't study curation. I didn't go to university for curation. At that point, though, in my career, I think this was 2016 now, I
Yeah,
was um I was lecturing at Kingston University. I was lecturing at London College of Fashion. I was lecturing at most of the bigger schools about how to get into curation, but I wasn't a curator, so the museums were shutting their doors on me because they were like, unless you were have your foundations in an MA in curation, it's just an untraditional way of going about
yeah.
exhibition practice. And so it was very disenfranchising, and I felt very lonely. And so I found myself in East London by myself, just like wondering how I was going to build a long-lasting career for myself. And I found myself at a gay bar, and I was like, everyone here is so mean. And so I decided to throw my own night where I was like, I'm gonna throw a Bollywood hip hop night where I'm gonna teach myself as a DJ. I'm gonna play Bollywood, pop, R&B, and hip hop music, and I'm gonna use all of my experience in fashion, art, and beauty, and invite all my friends and just start a new night. And I called it Hangama, which stands for chaos and celebration. And after the first party, we were written in the Guardian, Time Out, and ID and Dazed as the best party in the world. And we were called the Indian Studio 54, and we brought Bollywood and queerness to the forefront in a way that has never been done before. And so, in the last 3 years, I've been really excited to have created a party that has now played for British Vogue. We've played for Lovebox. We've played at Ministry of Sound. I've taught myself to DJ. I've helped nurture a handful of young queer South Asians to come out of the closet and find a home base for them to teeth, heal, and meet each other. And we've really started a Studio 54 style culture where there's not a single queer South Asian person who does not know about that night and has not been to it and has not helped I guess create a backbone for their creative strength and support, which is something they do not have when they grow up as kids in their homes. If you're creative or if you're queer, you get ousted from the family, you get exiled or thrown out. And I want to create a space that allowed them to come in and be themselves. And so I was very proud of that. But I'm telling you that for a reason because it was that night that got a lot of praise for what I did and who I was. I was being written about quite a bit as a person and for my identity. And then the whole fashion and art world were watching me as well. So no one had really forgotten where I came from, which was fashion exhibitions and beauty and I guess large scale installations. And I got a phone call 2 years ago from a production company saying, "Have you ever worked with flowers?" And I said, no, I've never, I'm not really a floral person. And they're like, we're casting for this new show where we want teams to come in and create gigantic flower sculptures. And would you be interested? And I was like, you're asking me to be on TV as a queer South Asian person, and you want me to build sculptures, which I've been doing for 10 years in exhibitions that not many people have heard about, but a lot of industries know about. And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So then I entered the big flower fight on which is now on Netflix and without any experience in flowers, my teammate and I
One.
won.
I watched it. You won. I know. It's incredible. I mean, for anyone that hasn't watched the big flower fight, firstly, if you like flowers, which I do, it's insane and it's beautiful because all the teams blow your mind. All the teams and all the sculptures are mind-blowing and stunning. But it's even more fun when you watch it and someone you know is on it and then they take it to the end and win. And it's like, so I do recommend anybody that likes flowers and likes Ryan, watch the big flower fight on Netflix. It is worth it. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I remember being on the show being like, have we just made a good sculpture or is this like not good enough? And then I was like, as soon as the penny dropped on the first episode that our sculpture was actually in the top two, I was like, oh my God, we could actually win this.
Yeah. Yeah. It was insane because to find out that you actually had no experience of floristry on any level was insane to watch you building because you obviously just know how to whatever materials put in front of you, whatever project you're going to give it. You're just one of these people that can bring stuff together.
Yeah,
It's
and
brilliant.
I'm getting a bit emotional right now, but it's the moments where I was creating a gigantic Tyrannosaurus Rex out of bamboo, or a Stonehenge style seat out of aluminium foil. I thought about the tenacity of Marianne, the creativity of Sue, the unbridled attitude of Sophie Robson, the cool chicness that needed to be like at all times put in place by Jenny Longworth, and the humble creativity that was Sophie Harris Greenslade, and all these wonderful nail queens that made Nailphilia what it is today. I held that really close, and I made sculptures, and I made them to win because I wanted to showcase creativity like all these amazing women in that industry.
And you went big, whereas with the nail industry goes small. You went enormous, 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 enormous. Because the last one was a house, wasn't it? Was it a Hansel and Gretel house?
We had to build a house, the tallest sculpture possible, based on a fairy tale. We had to have three characters in it and a living edge garden. And the interesting thing there was it had to be about color. And we decided to not have any color on the outside and to put all the color on the inside of the house.
Yeah.
And I remember that moment with Andrew, who I was working with and was my partner at the time. I was like, he was shutting down a bit, and he was like, "Oh, we're gonna lose. We have the shortest sculpture." It was Hansel and Gretel, Rapunzel, and Jack the Beanstalk.
Yeah.
Clearly, that is the most difficult sculpture compared to the other two when it comes to height. When it comes to color, and this is interesting because again, we're talking about things in the similar industry of nails. It's when it comes to color, the storyline doesn't ask for color on the outside. Hansel and Gretel had a scary house, but they were like Hansel and Gretel were so hungry, they saw color inside. That's what lured them in the house. And so we had to last minute be like, are we going to be artists or are we going to fit the brief? And we're like, let's be artists. We got this far.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So absolutely, we I recommend anybody watches that because it is a fantastic show. So what doors has winning the big flower fight opened for you then? Where are you moving now? What spheres are you moving in since then?
Well, I was very humbled to have won the flower fight. It harmonized really wonderfully with the three different careers that I created for myself. But recently, I again got a phone call. I keep getting these phone calls in a house with no landline. I I got a phone call from a production company who was pitching a show for BBC Three, and so BBC Three has asked me to host their new reality show called The Big Proud Party Agency, which is one of the first unscripted reality shows, which will be coming out next year. And it is about three incredible party planners and curators who are throwing parties for queer people who were not able to celebrate during COVID. So I'm one of the hosts. I'm also on the show with Christopher Mills, who throws parties for like Beyonce and Adele and Galliano and all these amazing people, and Teddy Edwards, who is an incredible lesbian party planner. And so we have a queer agency, and people come to us. And very much we like to go big, go crazy, and celebrate something that they didn't get to celebrate during COVID.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. So when do we see this then? When's this happening?
The Big Proud Party Agency is currently filming. It'll be wrapped by the end of 2021, and it will be out at the beginning of 2022, which I'm very excited about.
Okay, that's really exciting.
She's now
Whoa.
a TV presenter.
Pardon?
I'm a TV presenter now.
Yeah, you are. You've just so you've carved out what, that's number 4 or 5. You're moving
Yeah.
everywhere. You're just wowzers. So and so where do you think you what's the vision for the future? Do you have one, or are you just happy to see how life flows, Ryan?
I mean, it is really wonderful to watch it flow, but I mean, stability and having a foundation is really important to me,
Yeah.
especially during this climate that we've currently seen. Like a lot of people really like to ride popularity, but then forget to make sure there's a roof over their head and that they can take care of themselves. And COVID really taught me that. I remember before the pandemic, I was in India DJing in Mumbai and Delhi, and I had this moment be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that India's invited me to DJ as a queer person at the rooftop of this party." And I was like having a moment, and then like within weeks I was in London with nothing, and the whole world had come to a standstill. So I think what I really want to do is to create have everything come together to create something that is more secure for me. And I think it's really important to talk about that, especially when people are public figures. A lot of people like to assume that they have it easy and assume that there's a lot coming their way, but it takes a lot of work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And I think I want to like be a figurehead to talk about all of the things I've done in the past. Like I do not want to forget about nails and what the nail industry has done for my career. There are some exciting plans of how Nailphilia could potentially come back in ways that people have never seen
This
before.
is what we want to hear, is if Nailphilia still sits somewhere in the back and we could revisit Nailphilia 2 in some version, but maybe a more contemporary, more modern version a decade later. Who knows?
Absolutely. I think that I am one of the people who fuck with mediums, and I I am going to do exactly that. I'm definitely interested in bringing Nephilia to life again after 10 or 11 years, but I want to bring it back in a way that the whole world will be able to watch it and see it and explore it and experience it. And so I'm going to use technology, and I'm going to use a lot of the bigger heads to get there. So you have to stay tuned because it's really exciting. And I'm
Oh,
going to use everything I have in my wheelhouse to make sure it happens.
oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That was like, that is the end of an interview that I wasn't expecting, that kind of groovy positivity for the nail industry. I really, really, really like that. That's, that was the right answer, right? That was the right answer. So
Right.
thank you very, very much for giving us a fantastic rolling 10-year glide through, wow, through your career since you landed on UK shores, which does seem to have been absolutely brilliant and full of amazing people and amazing experiences. And obviously ups and downs. So I don't want to celebrate it all in the way that everything's been easy. Nothing's easy, and it
No.
has its swings and roundabouts, life. But can we ask, does Hungama still, is this still very much alive?
Yes, so we will have a Hangama in September. And it's going to be quite exciting because Hangama is going to start moving into the realms of music as well. So we'll be dropping new sounds, and not just be a party. So people can stay tuned for that.
Oh,
Um, but like we're playing the festival circuit. So like Hangama is on. We're playing Birmingham Pride. We're playing Mighty Hoopla in September. We're playing Body Movements in October. But so yeah, if you want to hear some Bollywood infused R&B hip hop, like it is incredible. People are raving about it after they've experienced it. And next year as well, when the show comes out, I'm definitely going to throw a big hungama on the back of the Big Proud Party Agency. So
this is
um
brilliant. So
yeah,
there are a million ways that people can tap into you.
yeah.
And then by looking at Scratch Magazine, we'll have some imagery from the Nailphilia exhibition that we talked about to marry in with this interview. Is that right,
ab-
Anne?
Absolutely. I'm going to make sure that you have everything you need in order to visually pad out my rambling.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very, very much for talking to me today. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank
My
you.
pleasure, Alex. You have always been a beacon of guiding light, and I can't wait to see you this fall. I'm going to see you soon.